Okay, everybody, welcome to our webinar today. This is part 2 of the Avenue Poodle series. Today, we once again have Justin Hunt, as the slide says, he's the Poodle guy. So today we're going to talk about, or Justin's going to talk about ReadAloud and Poodle WordCards. I've really been doing a lot of work with this recently, and I'm really excited to learn Justin's tips and tricks. And hopefully, once everybody has this webinar in their rear view mirror, they'll be using it more on Avenue as well. New Language Solutions is based in Ottawa, Ontario. We acknowledge that our head office is on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Beyond Ottawa, we have staff working in locations across Canada. New Language Solutions is grateful to have the opportunity to work as a guest in communities and territories across the country, and we honor the stewardship of the many Indigenous peoples who have resided on these lands since time immemorial. So, Justin, platform's yours.
Great. Yes, thanks, John, and thanks everybody for coming along to learn about Poodle ReadAloud and Poodle WordCards. So those are the two plugins for Moodle that I'm going to talk about today. Moodle is the platform that Avenue runs on. So I'll probably use the word Avenue most of the time, but if I drop in the word Moodle, just understand it's talking about the Avenue platform. I'm based in Japan, so it's 6 a.m. in the morning here, but I'm very happy to come and talk to you, and this is actually quite a good time to do it. We had a session recently about Poodle Media, another part of Poodle. So if you need to learn more about that, you can look at the session. I think you have an archive there. So today I'm going to talk first just a quick introduction to Poodle, which won't take very long. And then we'll talk about ReadAloud, and then we'll talk about WordCards. Each of those is quite a big topic, actually. I think we could spend an hour talking about each of them, really, if we wanted to. But yeah, 30 minutes or 20 minutes each should be fine also. As John mentioned, if you have questions, just ask them right away, because I think it's better than trying to wait till the end. If what you want to ask the question about is on screen, that's a really good time to talk about it. And there's not that many of us, so if you just want to unmute your microphone and ask the question with your voice, that's fine. If it's in chat, I might not notice, but in that case, John will probably notify me shortly about that. Along the way, I'll probably jump onto the Poodle demo site to show you a few things. This is where we have, this is where you can come anytime also to try Poodle. You're logged in as a teacher and a student, so you can make changes, and they'll be gone the following day because the site resets each day at 8 p.m. Feel free to go there and use that. Poodle Media, it's part of Poodle. It's not what we're talking about today. This is what we talked about 2 weeks ago, and there's a video in the archive there for you to look at. But it's basically audio and video recording in different parts of Moodle for assignments and quizzes and things like that. Poodle Languages, this is higher level activity modules for Poodle and Moodle, and for language learning. So we have ReadAloud, which is a reading tool, WordCards, which is a vocabulary learning tool. Mini Lesson and Solo are not on the Avenue platform currently, so that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're just talking about Poodle ReadAloud and Poodle WordCards. I might sometimes refer to the other plugins if there's something interesting there, but we're just focusing on ReadAloud and WordCards today. And if you have questions, like about how to do something, or you have a bug, or a recording gets lost or something like that, you can talk to the Avenue support team, and that's fine. But you can also come directly to support.poodle.com and look at the knowledge base to see how to do things, or post a ticket there, and we'll try and help you. Okay, so ReadAloud. So this is our oral reading fluency tool. It was originally designed without any AI or any speech recognition for teachers just to manually grade. And the original purpose was to diagnose dyslexia in ESL students, because the original designer, a guy called Elton Leclerc, He was working at a university here in Japan. And we worked quite closely on this in the initial creation of it, but also subsequently as we added all the new features. He's now back in Canada. He might join the call later today. But it's become quite popular because it's well, you'll see why, but it's very good for giving students reading practice and for teachers to see how well their students are reading. There's three main phases or three modes that the student goes through. The first one is the listen phase. They hear the audio of, well, each sentence is read aloud, karaoke style. It's highlighted and they can see it as it's being read, and they can hear it. And that'll go through the entire passage and read it to them. Then we have the practice phase, and here it's the same thing. It goes through line by line, and it reads the passage, reads a sentence or phrase aloud to them, and then it stops and gives them a little pop-up box like this where they have to practice reading that word by themselves, reading that phrase by themselves. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words a bit. And then in the last phase, they do the reading unassisted for the entire passage, and then we try to evaluate how well they read. This is the result they get after reading. It takes a minute or two for the result to come through. And then they'll see a result like this, which has, on the left-hand side, you can see a words per minute score, and then an accuracy score, and an all word total. This is the total number of words that they read. This is an audio player, so they can play back their audio. They can see how long they spoke for. They click on the View Full Report button. They can see the full report of their reading, which has all the information from the earlier screen, but also has a grade if the grade is set up to set up for the activity. And they can see the words they had trouble with, the last word they read up until, and they can click on the words and hear a nice reading of that word. For the teacher, they get this nice report of how the students have done. They can see the students' word per minute score here. They can see the accuracy, the grade, and if the activity was graded by a human or AI. By default, it'll be graded by AI, but as a teacher, you can click on the Grade Now button and go in. We can't see it there, but as a teacher, you can click on the Grade Now button, go in and grade that student, or correct or tweak or change the grade that student was given, and then you'll see that in the list here, it'll be listed as graded by a human. And there's another mode which is not usually turned on, called shadowing. And in shadowing mode, it kind of replaces the read mode here. And as the student is reading, they're actually hearing the audio being read to them. So this is quite popular in some ESL contexts. I'm not sure how many of you have actually used ReadAloud. I'm imagining probably many of you, but let's go and quickly try it on the demo site, or on the Avenue site, so we can see how it works. And as we go, if there's anything that people want to ask when they see it on the screen there, please let me know. Right, so here are those three phases: the listen, the practice, and the read. In this
Question,
case,
please.
Russian.
Hi, I have a question, please.
Yes,
Is Poodle demo course, it's Milka here, available to us participants, or do we need to sign up for it? Thank you.
Good question. Here is a demo course here, and I'm going to log out and show you what it looks like when you go there. It's available to the whole world. So you can go here anytime, and as I said, it resets every day at 8 p.m. EST time. So what you do today is gone the following day. Yeah, and when you click on the demo course here, it automatically logs you in as a random user. So in this case, you're logged in as this user here. But if you log out, or you come back the following day and you click on the demo course link again, you'll be logged in as a different user. So you're automatically logged in. It's available to anybody, and you are both a teacher and a student in this course. So you can put the course into edit mode if you want, and you can start creating activities and reviewing the settings for existing activities. And what you do is, again, go on the following day. So it's nice to come here and try things. I do this all the time even for support. I come here and just make sure things are working how I expect, or try to see how it's all set up. And I'm going to come back to the demo site later and show you a few things on the demo site that are not working yet on the Avenue platform or need to be fixed on the Avenue platform. Okay, so here is our listen mode in the read aloud activity. I click on play, it'll go
The
through.
Yeti, also called the abominable snowman, is an animal said to live in the Himalaya mountain range.
Okay, so in this case, that read two parts of the first sentence. He split it into two. If we go to the practice step,
The Yeti, also called
we'll
the
stop here
abominable
and give us a
snowman,
chance to read that ourselves. The Yeti, also called the abominable snowman. First recognition is a little bit slow, but the other ones will be
is
a
an
bit
animal
faster.
said to live in the Himalaya mountain range.
I'll make a mistake here. Is said to live in the Himalaya mountain range. And the student can try again to get a good pronunciation, or they can just continue. It isn't necessary to try to get 100% on every step. We're offering really more interested in fluency than we are in just trying to make the red thing go away. Okay, so there's a question there. In the read aloud, can we change the voice accent or male or female? Yes, we can. So let's do that now, since I did promise that we'd stop it, do things as the questions were asked. So let's go and have a look at the settings for the activity. So there is the passage language setting in the activity here, and this is going to be some variety of English. Although we have different Englishes here, South African, New Zealand, Philippine, Australian, in actual fact, the recognizer these days doesn't really distinguish between those. So in some cases it will, but for the most part, I think you can just consider English US as it's going to cover everybody. But the TTS voice is where you would change the accent of the speaker. And this TTS stands for text to speech. And these are the different voices that we have. And so the accents here is listed US, British, Australian, New Zealand, South African, Indian, Welsh accents. Okay, so you can choose any of those. Let's choose Ravina from India. And when I save that, that will kind of regenerate the audio so that when we play the passage back again, it'll be in Ravina's voice. Let's try. Go back to where we were.
The Yeti, also called the abominable snowman, is an animal said to live in the Himalaya mountain range.
Okay, so that went through and actually pronounced the word Himalaya a little bit differently to what we might expect. So that's how you can change the voices. There's a little bit more to say about voices, and I'll come back and talk about that shortly. We have another question from Michelle, and she says, is the grading then based on mispronunciation or missed words? So let's see what that looks like here.
The Yeti, also called the abominable snowman, is an animal said to live in the Himalaya mountain range.
Okay, so I'll make a mispronunciation. The Yeti, also called the snowman, is and said to live in the Himalaya mountain range. Okay, so I mispronounced mountain, but it still gave me that as correct, and we'll talk about why that is shortly. But if the word can't be transcribed to match what we see in the phrase that's being read, then it's considered a mistake. Let's call it a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's a speaking problem, perhaps. But if I skip a word, it's not going to be matched. And if I mangle a word and I don't pronounce it correctly, it's also not going to be matched. So that's really what the red thing means, is that we just couldn't catch that word. It didn't match what is in the phrase here. It could be a mispronunciation, or it could be that it was missed. And then in the final phase here, we have this, we don't see the passage until we click the button, and then we read the entire passage. So the Yeti, also called the abominable snowman, is an animal said to live in the Himalaya mountain range. People say they've seen it, but they never been catching. It is supposing to look like the ape that walking. Okay, so make a few mistakes. Check for results. So that will take a few minutes, maybe perhaps actually not a full minute, maybe 30 seconds to come back from grading. And then when the grades are ready, it'll look like we saw over here. And then the student can drill down and see how they went on that reading. Okay, there's our result there. So click on that full result, full report. I didn't do very well, and this is the word up until which I read. If I want to click on a word to hear how it should be pronounced, I just click on that word, and it will read it aloud.
Abominable.
Read it aloud for me, and I can review the audio here. The teacher has a similar interface. They see this reading. They see first a list of the attempts, and then they can click on grade now and go and they see the student's attempt, but this time they can tap on the word if they think it was actually pronounced correctly, and they can that will alter the scores here. Okay. Now there's something to say here. Recently we had it. Yes.
Can I just say something? Can you show the spot check as well? Because that helps you listen to the word that's they got incorrect or whatever.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if it's working on Avenue though. It's been acting funny lately.
Yeah. So actually, that thank you for bringing that up. That's actually, let me introduce that now because this is a good place to do that. We have an issue where currently on the Avenue platform where sometimes if you're on the grading page here, sometimes if you're on the grading page here, this audio won't play back. And it happens sometimes, and other times it doesn't happen. And it's not clear why that is. But I know why. And it's been fixed in the latest version. I think that's going to be updated this weekend. But the actual reason why it's broken is if you play the audio back here first, and then you go into the Grade Now page, it's going to be broken here. Okay, and that's a bug. It's going to be should be updated on the Avenue platform this weekend, I hope. But that will be why on this page sometimes the audio doesn't play. All right, and that will affect the spot check mode also because it's using the audio on this page here. So until next week, don't use the audio player on that list of students' attempts. Just use the audio player here on the grading page. Looking at the spot check mode and the transcript check mode, if we click on the spot check mode, each of the mistakes turns into a green box. And if we click on the box, we can actually hear the audio or any of the words. We can hear the audio in that location. So let's click on this word here and hear what might have the student might have said. Mountain range. Okay, so it was very muffled, and that's why it wasn't captured. Mountain range. So we might say that it was indeed not okay. So let's just get out of there. Let's click on Yeti. Read the entire passage. So the Yeti. Okay, I think, well, that was not pronounced the volume was quite low, but in fact, he pronounced that correctly. So then we would click on OK, and we can mark that as correct. All right. So, yeah, so many users they just want the students to go in there and get their feedback and retry, and they don't need to go in and to have a manual kind of a check to the students' attempts in this way. But for those who want to, this feature is available. There's a transcript check mode here. It's it may not be that useful for you, so I'm not going to cover that now, but it'll come up again shortly when we talk about the way we do transcription. So a couple of comments here. Okay, so Elizabeth says that ReadAloud helps with reading words, short sentences, and learner pronunciation. Great. Yeah, it is good because students get that practice independently, and for those students who have trouble, speaking in public, they don't want to speak in public, or they're shy about making mistakes. It's a great way for them to do that without the anxiety. Could it detect wrong intonation? Well, it will detect wrong intonation, and it can be if it's mistranscribed. So where a word is, even if it's pronounced incorrectly, it can be transcribed. It won't detect it. But if the word is, the intonation actually affects how it's transcribed, then it will be mistranscribed. So to some extent, it can detect wrong intonations. Excuse me. Let's go back and have a look at the settings. So I want to create a ReadAloud activity, and to do that, we have to go through the settings, and I want to cover some of the settings as they show up. So let's create a ReadAloud passage, and we'll use this one about polar bears. But polar bears here. I know that polar bears are very common in Canada. Everyone has a polar bear for a pet. Just going to copy that. That passage. That's the passage that we're going to use for our ReadAloud passage. And editing on. So here's our ReadAloud passage. I'm going to talk about polar bears. Come on, polar bears. Paste our passage in here. Okay, so there's our reading passage. We've got a time limit option here, and I'll cover why in a moment, but I think it's generally a good idea to set the time limit, basically to give them the time limit, and to make the passage a little bit longer than they can probably read in the time limit. So let's set the time limit here for 30 seconds, and the passage language here is English. The text-to-speech voice here is a British voice, but we might choose a US voice. So let's choose Joey. We can set the speed of the speaker. So set to slow. It can sound a bit dull, but it can also be a bit easier for students to follow because it's not going so quickly. So setting the speed to slow is quite good, but you can toggle that and try how that works. So we'll set it as slow now, but then we'll come back, we'll change that voice to another voice and make that a bit faster. And here's a target word per minute score and a can exit early thing. So let's look at the target word per minute score, which is 100 here, and what that means. Just going to go back over here. One of the people here has just asked, is it possible that we can have two voices, like to practice a dialogue? Basically, I think no. It doesn't work that well to do the dialogue because it's going to be the same voice, and it's really kind of a reading activity. There is a feature in another of the plugins, Mini Lesson, which allows you to build a dialogue from two text-to-speech voices, and that is something. It's not really for speaking practice in terms of a conversation. Like the computer has one voice, and you have then you respond to the speaker in a chat, kind of a simulation. It doesn't really do that, but it can basically present two voices in turn reading a dialogue. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
But in our case, for real life situations, it's a great way for them to practice the dialogue, like as a skill building activity. So yeah, they're listening to the same voice, but they're practicing, and then when they role play it in class with their partner for like a testing situation, then it really, really helps. Like I cannot emphasize how much ReadAloud helps my learners. It is unreal.
Oh, well, that's really good. There you go. So That's from a practitioner in the classroom, not a developer here in Japan. Right. So yeah, so for giving them practice, I guess, yes, it's invaluable in that sense because they get the opportunity to go through and do that before they actually have to do it with their partner in class. So that's saves time and I guess, you know, it's an opportunity for them to get better. So, okay, thank you. Let me talk a little bit about the grading. Okay, so we often not everybody wants to give a grade on a read aloud activity, but there is the option to give a grade, and certainly teachers in Japan, it's important that students get a grade or get some sort of record in the grade book for what they've done. And how do you grade something like read aloud? And that was an issue that we had to grapple with in the early days when Elton and I were designing the activity. The way that we chose to is by having a target words per minute score. WPM equals words per minute. So and actually correct words per minute. So the grade calculation is the attempt word per minute, so what the student achieves on the activity, over the target words per minute score. So if the target words per minute score is 100, well, let me say, if the target words per minute score is 80, and they read at a speed of 40 words per minute, they're going to get 50%. And if the target words per minute score is 80, but the attempt words per minute score is 100, then they're going to get 100%. And this is how we give a grade on the activity. So you can see here we have our target words per minute score as 100, and that's going to affect the grade. That needs to be, configured based on your students. So you need to really understand, is everybody going to get 100, or are half of them going to get 100? Like how do you want the grades to be distributed, and what's a good words per minute score? It's something that you need to think about as a teacher.
When talking about the CLBs, I can say that in a level 1 and 2 class, 100 is way too high. And it really demotes them. Like, it really makes them feel bad. So I changed that to about 60 words.
Okay, great. Well, let's do that. Let's make our reading 60 words here. Here's that setting here, the activity is setting. Now, there's one other thing which I guess those who have used ReadAloud will probably already have noticed, but it's also important, which is how we calculate this words per minute score here. So basically, we want to calculate based on their the amount of the time that they spent reading. So if they spent reading, if they read for 1 minute, then their words per minute score is pretty clearly how many words they read correctly in that 1 minute time. But where the time limit is set to 30 seconds, then we're going to multiply their correct words by 2 to get their words per minute score. Where that becomes a problem is where this option here, can exit early, is checked. So that's over here, can exit early. Okay, so if can exit early is checked, then they'll be able to exit the activity after reading just 10 seconds or 20 seconds. So let's try that here, and I'll show you what happens. I didn't actually enable. In fact, how is that going to look? Well, that's something else to consider. Just hold on a moment. Jump around. There's too many settings. I have to apologize. There's just way too many settings. It's not they in the early days we had some need for each of these settings, but in many cases we don't need that anymore. This is one of those, the audio recorder type. So this is mic test then start. So the student has a practice 3 or 4 seconds before the mic becomes enabled for the activity. That's here by the default, but in actual fact, I think just start is a better way of doing this. And then when they click on the recording icon, it will immediately begin, and they won't have this step where they have to practice. This was where, in the pure assessment sense, we wanted to make sure that students' mic was actually working before we let them into the activity. I think that's less important these days. Let's go back. Okay, so can exit early is now checked. When most people think of polar bears, okay, and I exited after 4 seconds, right? So I only read 4 seconds. And what happens in that situation is that the words per minute score is calculated using the time that they read. So I'm going to get a words per minute score based on how many words I read in 4 seconds multiplied by 20, no, by 15 to give me my words per minute score. So I'm going to get a really high words per minute score, even though I read for a very short time. So in this example here, if I read for 20 seconds, I could get a words per minute score of 100 and get 100% when I didn't actually read very much. And the student over here who tried very hard to read for the full 60 seconds to read the entire passage, but they might only get 50%, even though they were the one that tried hard. So the can exit early checkbox, it's quite useful, but in actual fact, you may want to leave that unchecked so that students have to do the entire reading. Again with the accuracy, if we allow them to exit early, they can get a high accuracy even by only reading a short amount. But if we set the time limit to 30 seconds or 1 minute, then the accuracy will cover the entire period of that 30 seconds or 1 minute. So yeah, we have a situation where not all of our users of ReadAloud, the student users, are sincerely trying to get better at English. They're just trying to game the system in many cases. So we've had to juggle how we do some of these things. This is I guess the way we recommend people set it up for the most part, in particular when they're grading. We can see it down here in the hint section. Set a time limit. Uncheck can exit early, and make the passage too long to complete within the time limit. And that means that students have to read all the way through to the end. And then some students who are good students will get a higher score, and those who are not such good students will get a lower score. And then you can work with those results. But yeah, you're working with your students, and you know your students and the way it works best for them. So I wouldn't alter that if that's not what you do. But this is how many of our teachers in the classroom in Japan are using it. Okay. Now, you notice that when we first started the activity, there was only one read box, and that the listen and repeat mode and the listen mode were not actually enabled, and that's because we hadn't checked these checkboxes here. So by default, most sites, these are actually pre-checked for you, but I think on the Avenue site they're not. So you'll need to check these listen and practice checkboxes to make those appear. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the transcription. Okay, so how do we take the audio and turn that into text, which we then convert to match against the passage to see how well they read? And there's two ways of doing that. We've got the guided transcription and the open transcription. STT equals speech to text. So I'm just going to go back over here. And these are those settings here: line transcriber and passage transcriber. And the options are guided STT here and open STT here. This is quite an important distinction, and let me explain what they are. So the line transcriber refers to what we do in the practice step. So I'm going to go to my demo course so we can see two things at the same time. So practice here. This is the line transcription where we go line by line. So we can set that to use guided transcription or open transcription. And the passage, we can set that independently to be open or guided in the same way. That's for the full reading. The difference between the two, guided speech to text, we constrain the recognizer to just look for the words that are in the passage. So in the case of abominable, that could be transcribed as abdominal in some situations, right? If we were looking at the whole universe of English words. But in guided speech-to-text, it will never be transcribed as abdominal, okay? Because in the passage, the word abdominal does not exist. It's just abominable. So guided speech-to-text will constrain the recognition to just the words that are in the passage. So you're going to get, the students are going to get better results, and they're going to make fewer errors. If that's what you want, then guided speech-to-text is the correct option. Open speech-to-text, the recognition is unconstrained. So the student might say the word abominable, they might trip over the word, and it might be recognized as abdominal. So they're going to get more errors. And if you're interested in detecting, poor poor pronunciation or poor intonation, then open STT is probably a better choice for you. So it's really up to you how you want to do that. I sometimes set open STT for line transcription, so they really have to focus on that particular line to get the word correct. But then for passage transcription, I'll set that to be guided, because students, they'll often try very hard on the first couple of sentences, but their power will kind of, wane as they go through the passage, and they're mumbling a little bit and struggling towards the end. So I'll set that to guided to give them a slightly easier ride. So those options again are here: line transcriber and passage transcriber. So I'll set this one to guided, and I'll set this one to open. I'll set this one to guided, like that. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the model audio. So here we have, we set the speaker to be, I think, Joey, and we set the speed to be slow.
When most people think of polar bears, they imagine solitary hunters roaming the...
Now, in some cases, it might not stop here. If we put a comma here, it's going to stop there. But if I go back to the settings, and I remove this comma here, and let's remove the comma here, and then I change the voice from Joey to, let's say, another voice. Let's say with English com. Kajal, okay. And we set the speed to medium. And we play that back.
When most people think of polar bears, they imagine solitary hunters roaming the ice in search of their next meal. For male polar...
Okay, so that sentence is now very long, and we might want to tweak that. We don't want the student to have to read all those words in one go, in one chunk. It's a big chunk. So one way you can do that is by adding commas into your and periods into your passage, and then it will kind of naturally try to break on those points, but it won't always be correct. And in that case, we can go to the model audio tab, and you can see where the blue line is here. That's where the break has been inserted. So you might want to put the break here. Okay, and if we save that now and go back.
When most people think of polar bears, they imagine solitary hunters roaming the ice in search...
Okay. So it'll break on the location where you put that blue check mark. And that becomes quite important when you use a voice that doesn't have word level kind of word stamps, timestamps at each word that allow us to set, so we know that the this point in the audio equals this word in the passage. Where we don't know that, it's difficult for us to mark up the audio automatically. And there are some voices, the ones that have a little exclamation mark, those are words where we manually need to set the speech breaks. So we choose one of those voices here. Let's just choose Tiffany. These are some often very expressive voices. They come from a different provider and they sound really natural, but we don't get those automatic breaks. So I save that and we go back to our passage. Oh my goodness, we haven't got much time for word cards. We have to go. Okay, probably not going to break for us correctly here.
When most people think of polar bears, they imagine solitary hunters roaming the ice in search of their next meal.
Okay, it's all messed up. So in that situation, you would go to the model audio tab, clear the model audio. We're starting from scratch, and probably we'd use manual break timing. So here we play the audio, and as we're playing it, we check the words in the passage that we want to stop on. So let's try that quickly.
When most people think of polar bears, they imagine solitary hunters roaming the ice in search of their next meal. For male polar bears, at least, this is true. Females, however, are rarely seen without their cubs. In fact, mothers usually remain with their cubs for 2 or 3 years after birth. Unlike most animals, which have babies each spring, female polar bears may go several years without any cubs.
Okay. And now it's going to break on those points at which we I think we can actually try that here. Let's try.
When most people think of polar bears, they imagine solitary hunters roaming the ice in search of their next meal. For male polar bears.
Okay, so that's how you can tweak the model audio markup. And if you use one of those voices, which doesn't have the timestamps, you can do it in that way. You can also record a voice if you want to record your own voice, or you can even upload an audio file if you have something from a textbook that you're using. Takes a second. There's our recording there, and that will transcribe the audio and give you a little bit of time, maybe 30 seconds, a minute for that to be processed, but then you can do the same thing here with the audio that you uploaded. I got all excited and I talked on and on about ReadAloud, and we still have to deal with the word cards. So let's get on to word cards now. Okay, so Poodll WordCards, this is our vocabulary learning tool, and it's very popular. And let me just go through and show it to you. This is the learn mode. So here we see cards, and on each card we have the new word, which they're learning. In this case, it's however. And beneath that, we have a model sentence. And these are audio to play the new word and to play the model sentence. We can step through the different words in the set using the arrow button here. And on the flip side of the card, we have the word, the definition of the word in the whatever language you're using for the definition. So I know in Avenue's case, many of the users are going to come from different countries. Some of them will be from the Middle East. Some of them will be from Eastern Europe. Some of them will be from Asia. So you probably want to use English on the front face, and English on the back face. And then we have this video icon here, which is optional, but that will load a video giving examples of the word being used in some context. On the same page that the learners are working with, they'll have this list of the words that are in the set, and we've got the word they're learning, the definition of the word, the model sentence, and then the learned status. So to what extent do we think that student has learned that particular word? Ideally, the student will go through and get a learned check for each of the words. This is one of the views. We can see here the different activity types. Choose the answer type, the answer listen and type. And in this case, because we're talking about sushi, we can put pictures on the cards, but it isn't always necessary for you to use pictures. I think many words at a certain point, pictures just aren't that appropriate. But certainly for early learners or for very basic words, pictures can be quite helpful. Right. Somebody's mentioned about a hands-on course of ReadAloud or a workshop, but not at this year's TESOL conference. Yeah, so maybe we can do that next year, because I came to Canada this year, and we could even do something in person. Maybe we can't do it in person, but we can arrange another meeting where we can do a hands-on session. Yes, good idea. The different activity types. So there's several. I'm not going to show them all here, but one of them is type the answer. So we see the definition of the word here, and they have to type that word. There's an on-screen keyboard for that if they want to use that. This is say the word. So we see the word that they're learning, and they have to try and pronounce that. Again, we have the guided and the open STT distinction here. Probably guided STT is better because there's no context for this word. So it's a little bit harder for the recognizer to get that. So guided speech to text is good here. And this is one of the more recent activity types in WordCards, space games. So we give the students the definition at the top, and they have to shoot the correct word from the spaceships here. So this is, of course, popular with younger learners. Let's try. So we'll quickly jump over and have a look at the WordCards on the site here. So here's our WordCards activity. Here's our card. We can flip through the different cards. We can play the audio on the word here.
Assume.
Play the model audio.
People often assume the worst in others.
If I flip the card, I get the definition. In this case, we've given them an English definition because our users are from different parts of the world. They don't have the same L1. And if I click on the video icon, it's going to load the Youglish player for us.
I mean, you might even assume that they were setting him up.
Beneath that, we have the list of words, as we've seen, and we haven't learned any of these words yet, so we're at 0 in this case. Now, this is the learn mode. So if I click on continue, I'm going to go through the different activity types here. We get this pre-screen here where we can preview, which words we're going to go actually practice in the activity, and then we go in. And in this case, here's the word here, and we have to choose the definition. So exercises, not that one. Difficult is hard, not easy. And as a teacher, I can step through the different activity types here, and we can try them. It's the dictation.
Difficult. Educate.
As a student in the steps mode, they don't have the ability to click through from activity type to activity type. They have to complete the activity. This is listen and type.
Difficult.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to set up WordCards in a moment, Elizabeth. So thanks for the comment there that it's difficult to set up WordCards with images. To be honest, the images they don't work great. I'm not very happy with the images. So yeah, I just have to apologize for that. They do support images, but it's not their strong point, to be honest. So to create a WordCards activity, go and do that. Okay, so we'll give it a title. So, new words. Description is not really necessary. And here we have steps mode versus free mode. So these are the modes here: steps mode, free mode, and there's also steps mode, then free mode. So in steps mode, the student sees what we see on the left-hand side here. They have to go through each of these steps here: start, practice, 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 review, and then they're finished. Then they get a grade and they get a completion so that they can move on to the next activity if completion is set up. Okay, and free mode, then they have the activity types on the left. They can choose those freely and go in and practice them. So there's no grade and there's no completion for free mode, but you can use them how you need to. Okay. The Youglish is set here. We've got the video examples. So we You can turn those on or off. By default, it's off, but you can if you turn that on, then when you create the word set, it will create a Youglish video player for each of them. And this is the player that we saw a minute ago. And it will play that video 3 times before moving on to the next video. And you can't choose the videos that are displayed in the player. So it's quite good, but I find sometimes the sentences that are in the player are not the ones that I would want to choose for whatever reason. So I think use your judgment about if that's something that's good for your learners or not. And then we have the learned status. I'm just going to jump over to the WordCards here. And here we have the learned status here. So we can see the student has learned this word here. And there's some way towards learning small and state. But how is that determined? How do we know when a student has learned it, or that they're at 25% or 75%? So we use this formula here. So the learned status is the number of correct associations that they've made using the practice activities. So the space game or the listen and type. Each time they make a correct association, we count that. And then we have a learned point, and that's in the settings that we configuring over here. So learned point, in this case, it's 4, but let's say it's 10. And if the learned point was 10, they would need to make 10 correct associations before the word would be considered learned. So in the case of the learned point is 4, that's the point at which we think the word has been learned, and they have 2 correct associations in total, then they'll be at 50%, somewhere like here. And that's how we determine if the word has been learned or not. And that is quite important because we want to show students words that they have not yet learned in the practice activities, and the words that we consider they have learned, we can retire those ones and we just focus on the words that they haven't learned yet. And so we have a report here of the students' terms learned, and we can see how many they've learned and their and their percentage towards learning the total words in the word pool. If we drill down, we can actually go and see which words the student has mastered here. And I'm jumping around a little bit because we're running out of time. But there are word pools in WordCards. There's new words, review words, and my words. So the new words are the words that we add to an activity. Let's say we have 5 activities in the course, and we're on activity 5, and we've added 5 words. They will be the new words here: cat, dog, monkey, horse, fish. So each WordCards activity in your course has a different set of new words. The review words are the words they've previously seen in the course that they've covered before in a previous WordCards activity. And the my words are the ones that they've self-selected here using the little post-it note on the side. So each of the words has a post-it note here or here in different locations, and they become they get added to the my words set. And then when the student is in free mode, they can choose from the my words pool if they want to practice the words in the my words pool for these activities here. Okay, and that allows them to control their learned state. So they're focusing on a particular set of words. They want to learn those words so that their learned check mark comes up. They can do that using the my words feature here. Or we'll try to recycle words which they have already seen, the review words. In this case, it's called seen words. Here in the free mode, but also in the settings for the activity, when you create activity that uses steps mode, you can choose review. So in this case, the words for the steps for this activity, listen and type, will be drawn from the review pool. Okay, not from the new words pool. I hope that's not confusing, but that's basically how the word pools work in WordCards. And we're just about out of time. I'm so sorry. I wanted to cover more, but I got sidetracked on ReadAloud. The final thing I wanted to talk about was how to add words. So they can be added one by one. From a CSV file, you can drag and you can kind of paste them in if you've got them from Quizlet or something. You can actually import them from a glossary now, if you have a glossary on your page, or there is the word wizard, which is the best way of doing it. Okay. I wanted to go and show you how to add words, but I think we're out of time and I need to cover what's been said here in the chat. Elizabeth has talked about the fact that she prefers H5P over Poodle WordCards because it supports pictures better, which is better for younger learners. And okay, yeah, so that's great. So I understand. Yeah, if we can add more activity types and ones that use pictures, then those that want to use pictures, and if we improve the picture support, then it makes it more useful for everybody. So that's good feedback. Thanks. Let me just show you how to import from the glossary, because here's the glossary here, classroom English words. I made a quick one earlier today. So here's and it's just like, it doesn't have pictures, doesn't have model sentences. It's just these two items here. But if I go to the import, because I have a glossary, I see this import from glossary here. Okay. If I didn't have a glossary, I wouldn't see this. So first, if you have a glossary in your site, then this will appear. When I click import from glossary, where's it gone? Oh, okay. It appears here in the here. So this gives me an option to change whatever here, or edit it, or make sure everything is correct. Then click on import words. Okay, and it's imported 5 rows from the glossary. So let's say you have a glossary and you've got 100 words, but you only want 5 of them and to be actually in each activity. You'd import from glossary and you delete the 15 that you don't want, and then you do the import, and you'd end up with your 5 words here. Okay, and they should have Youglish ready for you to go there with furniture on them.
Free. And I'll never forget, he was sitting in this chair, he had a big free.
Share in this case.
And I'll never...
Okay. There's also a word wizard, which I think is the easiest way of adding words. And if I just get a list of words here that I've need to get words for, then I would paste in the words here and press the fetch definitions button. Now, unfortunately, this is one of the things that has to be fixed this week, and I'm sorry, this is my fault. I broke this. So it doesn't actually work here, but if we do it on another one over here, a different one, different word on a different site where it's actually working properly, I paste in those words there and fetch definitions, and that will give us it'll go to our dictionary. We have a learner dictionary.
So thank you, Justin. I know that all of us have learned a lot today, and I gotta say the potential here is amazing for us.
Thanks very much. I'm sorry we went a little bit over time. I didn't quite cover as much in WordCards as I wanted to, but feel free to send me email or to or to send any messages to John, and he'll forward those on to me. Okay, thanks everyone. Stay in touch. Please. I love to hear your comments and even the ones that aren't positive about Poodle, because that makes it all better, and we want to make it better. So I appreciate your feedback.